Been working on that porch for the house. Of course, I kind of put it off through the summer. I didn't want to take too much time away from the airplane here getting it done. But I've been working on it some more. We got the steel finished painting, and I got the backfill in around the basement there and the fill around there enough that I can go ahead and finish it. When I originally started doing that, the basic idea I had was to build a deck on there that I could just support the existing roof with and make a start for a permanent porch. Now that I've got time to work on it, I decided I didn't want to just put those deck boards down with the existing roof on there and leave the deck boards exposed to the weather until I get around to putting a roof on it. So I've got to think about how to put a roof over the thing, how to finish it out. I've got a pretty good working idea of what I want to do, but I'm going to need some more boards, some more timbers. So I've got to do some milling, and I ran out of bandsaw blades for my bandsaw mill. I've been working on my circle saw mill, my mobile dimension mill, but it's not ready to run yet. And the yellow cedar that I've got to use for the porch, even though it's pretty good size logs, I can put it on the bandsaw mill and work it up on that. So anyway, I've got lots of bandsaw blades. I just need to sharpen some up, and the sharpener is back here on this bench in the back of the hangar. As I move the airplane in here into the hangar, I just started stuffing stuff back into this corner to get it out of the way here where this workbench is. So I need to get in here and get this mess cleaned up and get all that bench straightened up so that I can get to my saw sharpening equipment. Well, I guess that's what the project of the day is. Probably the project of a couple, 3 days is to try to get this stuff all straightened out in here. I've got a lot of the regular junk, pipes and tubes and oil and chainsaws and chainsaw parts and gas cans and all the regular miscellaneous stuff that I've got. Plus I've got the rotisserie for the airframe. I didn't want to just throw those out into the weather, and I didn't really have any place else to put them that would be out of the way, so now I got to figure out what I'm going to do with them. I've got a whole bunch of hardware back here on this bench, a whole bunch of screws and nuts and bolts and other things that we've collected that we use, deck screws and sheetrock screws and all kinds of other miscellaneous parts and pieces back there in the boxes. And we got some of these parts trays from a hardware store in town, and they moved to a different style of parts tray for their displays and stuff, so we've got these parts trays here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and clean that bench off and put those parts trays over there on the bench and start getting some of that stuff straightened out. So of course that's going to take a little longer than just shoving things around and stuffing them from one place to another. My workbench looks a lot better, a whole bunch better. I got all of those boxes and containers of odds and ends of screws and bolts and nuts and nails and whatever else was there, all organized now in those parts bins. That moved things around and changed things and made it a lot nicer. So this end of the bench looks pretty darn good. I still got a whole bunch of crap down there on the other end I got to deal with, and then I got all that junk on the floor that I've got to figure out what to do with. I've got those power saws down there in the way that have accumulated since the last time. I don't know, those things must breed when it's dark in here or something, because there's more of them there on the floor than there was last time I was in there working on this. Whole bunch more. Now a lot of that junk there on the floor is going to get burnt as soon as I get enough stuff away from that stove that I can light it. Just keep plugging away at it. Eventually I'll have a hole in there. It's never going to be perfectly clean because I have too much crap, but you never have enough crap. Some of the stuff's just junk until you need it. I made a lot of good stuff out of junk. There we go. That's much better. That bench is pretty much cleaned off there now, and I got this end of the hangar cleaned out. It's still a mess down here on the floor, but I'll get all that stuff tomorrow and throw it in the stove and get a fire going in the stove and try to get some of the dampness out of this corner. I've got my first blade set up on the sharpener and did a little test run on it, and it works okay. Got my stove going. It's heated that corner up a little bit back there. Of course, this hangar is so open that heat just goes up to the top and there's nothing to block it from going out the rafters or anything else. So mainly get radiant heat off the stove back here. It doesn't really heat the air up very much. But it's going pretty good today. I got most of the junk cleaned up and burned. I didn't burn it all because I can use that to start the fire again the next time I want to get it going. Anyway, I'm going to get busy and get a few of these blades sharpened up. See, I just started on this one, made sure I remembered how it worked and everything, got it set up. So I'll get this first blade sharpened up, and we'll get some more done, get some blades sharpened up so I can run that mill, get some wood cut. Ideally now this would just be automatic. It'd just go through there automatically and sharpen that. With that small blade like that, gets enough tension in it and it gets some twist in it and stuff, so as it comes around underneath the sharpener, it raises and lowers on the guides there, and so sometimes it takes a deeper cut and sometimes a shallower cut. Well, basically what I have to do is just sit there and hold it down and make sure it goes through there evenly. I've got two blades done now. The first one took me quite a bit longer to do than the second one. The second one went pretty quick. Like I said, there's certain stresses in those blades. I think they're induced in them just by welding them up into a circle and then routing them around this tight track that they have to go around. Causes them to raise and lower. Sometimes they'll be cocked up and higher in the back, sometimes they'll be higher in the front, and sometimes both sides come up, which anyway causes the depth of cut to be different on them as it goes around, so you kind of have to stay there and watch that, and I just kind of hold the blade down as it goes around there to kind of keep it under control so that it keeps the depth of cut uniform. But then in these blades you get different geometry on the teeth too as they go around, and some of that I think is induced into the blade when it's used as it goes through the blade at different speeds or hits a knot, things like that. It may stretch that blade out a little bit, so you have a little bit different length of these teeth. It might stretch these teeth out a little, the blade out a little bit, so the teeth is not the same dimension from one tooth to the other. I think that does that, and that's what I originally thought was the main problem. But as I've gone through more in these, I've come to the realization that these things aren't made to near the specifications, near the tolerances as they're advertised. I have ground brand new blades for other guys that has a mill that wanted me to grind brand new blades for them and sharpen them. And even on those there'll be differences. There'll be different distances between the teeth. There'll be different depths of the gullet. Some of them can just be a mess, and it's real tough to get them ground to where they're uniform. It takes a while to do that. It'll just be varying down here, so I don't think these things, some of these are ground out, some of them are milled out, and when they do that I don't think they get them to near the precision tolerance as they say they do. It makes it kind of tough sometimes on some of those blades. Some of them can be a real bear to do. You have to stay right there and adjust the machine as it goes around, and I try to do it lightly to go around, take a little bit off of the high ones first, and then just gradually get around to where all the teeth are all uniform, and then once I get them all uniform and ground around, then I'll go around them twice more just to kind of polish them up. Well, anyway, there's two of them done. I've got 20 more of them to do, I guess. There's a lot of stress on that blade as it goes around those band wheels, and a lot of flex in it. And then of course when it enters the wood, and if it hits different densities of the wood like knots and stuff, it adds more stress to it. And most of the stresses are concentrated right there in those gullets, particularly right there where the tooth, the face of the tooth comes down into the gullet. That's the deepest part. So that needs to be ground out every time. You need to grind out right down to the bottom of the gullet every time, because it gets micro fractures in there, and then every time you use it, they grow. So I make sure and get each one of those blades sharpened up down into the gullets, and I can get Oh, I think this one, like I said, has been sharpened 6 times or so. I can get 8 or 10 sharpenings out of each one of these blades if I don't overstress them, if I don't leave them in the log too long and cut too long on them, and things like that. Make sure and get them cut down into the gullet. Well, anyway, every time you grind those, you take some of the set out of the teeth, and by grinding these down, some of these teeth have been ground down more than other ones, so they're going to have less set on them than the other ones. So that one's all screwed up on the set. Well, ideally what I would do is set that one aside and get my tooth setter out and reset the teeth on that before I run it. I have to take down the sharpening set up and then set up the tooth setter. Anyway, I'm just letting this go around a couple more times just to finish polishing these up, just to make a nice smooth cut on them, because some of them were cut pretty deep and other ones pretty shallow. And if I let it go around a couple times and make lighter cuts on it as it goes, then it kind of polishes them up, I think. I've also got to take, since I cut so much on that one, there's going to be a pretty good burr on it. I'm going to take an old grinding stone and knock the burr off of that. I think I got 16 or 17 blades sharpened up. I've got 4 more blades back there that I dug out that I was going to look at sharpening those up, but when I got to checking them, those are 7/8 inch pitch, and what I've been using is 3/4 inch pitch, and that's what I have a cam for sharpening blades, is a 3/4 inch pitch. I also have a cam for 1 inch pitch someplace, as I was sharpening blades for a guy with a resaw band mill here a few years ago, but he doesn't have that anymore. When I bought the last batch of blades, sent me some with a 7/8 inch pitch, and I can't sharpen those. That's it. Now I can put all that crap back in this corner again.